Are you truly living, or are you just existing, going through the motions day after day? Wake up, work, eat, sleep, and then repeat. You keep telling yourself you'll start living later, when you have more time, when you have more money, when things finally settle down. Daniel told himself the exact same thing. For 42 years, he waited for later, and then his father died. In that single shattering moment, Daniel understood the cruelest truth of all. Later never comes. The time to live is right now, and what he did after that funeral, it changed absolutely everything. Daniel was 42 years old, and by every standard the world cared about, he was a massive success. He was a senior partner at a prestigious law firm, pulling in a six-figure salary. He had a beautiful house in the suburbs, a wife, 2 kids. He was, on paper, living the American dream. Except he wasn't living at all. He was performing every morning. He woke up at 5:30 a.m., his eyes glued to his emails before his feet even touched the floor. His days were a blur of 12-hour work sessions, often longer. Weekends weren't for family. They were for catching up on the mountain of work he couldn't finish during the week. His son's basketball games, he missed most of them. His daughter's school play, he was stuck on a conference call in the parking lot just outside the auditorium. His wife would ask him, with a quiet sadness in her voice, "When was the last time we just talked?" And his answer was always the same: "Soon, I promise." Things will slow down soon, but things never slowed down. They never do when you keep saying yes to everything except the things that truly matter. His life was a runaway train, and he was too busy shoveling coal into the engine to notice where it was going. His relationship with his father had always been complicated. His dad was a quiet man, a carpenter who had worked with his hands his entire life. He never made much money, never traveled far from home. But he seemed to possess a deep contentment, a quiet peace that Daniel could never quite understand. "You're wasting your life, Dad," Daniel had said once, years ago, during a heated argument. "You could have been so much more." His father had just looked at him, his eyes filled with a gentle sadness, and asked, "More than what, son?" Daniel didn't have an answer then. He just assumed his father didn't understand ambition, didn't grasp the concept of success. But now, sitting in a sterile hospital waiting room at 3 in the morning, the harsh fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, Daniel began to wonder if it was the other way around. Maybe he was the one who didn't understand. The phone call had shattered the silence of his night just after midnight. His father had collapsed at home, a massive heart attack. By the time Daniel sped to the hospital, his father was already in the ICU, a ventilator and a web of machines breathing for him. The doctor, his face etched with exhaustion, pulled Daniel aside. "I'm sorry," he said, the words heavy and final. "There's nothing more we can do. It's just a matter of time now." Daniel just nodded, a strange numbness spreading through him. He walked into the room and sat in the chair beside the bed. His father's hand felt cold and frail in his own. Daniel held it anyway. For hours, he just sat there, a silent vigil. He watched the rhythmic rise and fall of the green lines on the monitors, listened to the mechanical whoosh and click of the ventilator that was keeping his father's body alive. And he thought about all the conversations they'd never had, all the times he'd been too busy to visit, all the phone calls he'd cut short because a meeting was about to start. A lifetime of missed moments played back in his mind. At 6:47 a.m., his father's eyes flickered open. Just for a moment, he looked directly at Daniel, and with a strength that seemed impossible, he squeezed his son's hand. He whispered something, his voice a faint rasp. Daniel leaned in close, his ear just inches from his father's lips. "What, Dad? What is it?" His father's voice was barely audible, a thread of sound in the quiet room. "Don't waste it, Daniel." "Don't waste what, Dad?" Daniel pleaded, his heart pounding. "Your life." And then his father closed his eyes. 10 minutes later, he was gone. Daniel sat in that hospital room for another hour, maybe longer. Time seemed to have stopped. He just stared at his father's still, peaceful face. "Don't waste it." The words echoed in the hollow chambers of his mind, over and over again. His father's last words to him, not "I love you," not "I'm proud of you," because his father knew. He had watched Daniel for 42 years, running relentlessly on a treadmill, chasing a phantom he could never quite catch. And in his final fleeting moment of clarity, his father had tried to give him the most important gift of all, a warning. "You're missing it. You're missing your life." The funeral was 3 days later. Daniel stood at the podium and tried to give a eulogy. He talked about his father's work ethic, his honesty, his kindness. But when he looked out at the small crowd, mostly old friends and neighbors, he realized something. These people had known his father better than he had. They had spent time with him. They had shared meals, stories, laughter. Daniel had been too busy. He'd always been too busy. And now it was too late. He broke down in the middle of the eulogy, just stood there crying, unable to speak. His wife came up and led him back to his seat. And in that moment of complete vulnerability, something inside Daniel cracked open. After the funeral, Daniel did something he'd never done. He took a week off work, not for a vacation, not for anything productive, just to think. He sat in his father's empty house, surrounded by the simple life his father had built. The tools in the garage, still organized. The books on the shelf, many of them read multiple times. The photo albums filled with pictures of moments Daniel had missed. And he started making a list. Not a to-do list, a did-I list. Did I live? Did I love deeply? Did I laugh enough? Did I tell the people I care about that I care? Did I take risks? Did I chase my dreams or just my paycheck? The answers devastated him. No, 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 no. But then he made another list, a will I list. Will I keep living this way? Will I keep postponing life? Will I keep pretending that later is guaranteed? Will I let fear and obligation control me? Will I die with the same regrets my father tried to warn me about? And to every question, he wrote the same answer. No, no more. Daniel went back to work after that week, but he was different. He started saying no. No to the unnecessary meetings. No to the weekend work. No to the projects that would consume him. His colleagues thought he'd lost his edge. His boss was concerned. But Daniel didn't care. He started leaving the office at 5 p.m. He showed up to his son's basketball games, all of them. He had dinner with his family every night. Really had dinner, not just sitting at the table while checking his phone. He started taking walks with his wife. No destination, just walking and talking. He booked a camping trip with his kids, something he'd been saying he'd do for years. And he started woodworking, learning the craft his father had loved, feeling the same satisfaction in creating something with his hands. His wife noticed first. One night, she looked at him and said, "You're different." "I know," Daniel said. "Is it good, different, or bad, different?" "It's like you're actually here," she said, tears in her eyes. "Like you came back from somewhere." "I did," Daniel said. "I came back from a life I wasn't living." 6 months after his father's death, Daniel quit his job. Not recklessly, not angrily. He just realized that he was trading his life for money. He didn't need to impress people he didn't like. He started his own small practice, working half the hours for half the money, and it was enough. More than enough. Because he had something he'd never had before. Time. Time to be with his kids. Time to love his wife. Time to pursue interests that had nothing to do with status or success. Time to live. 1 year after his father's death, Daniel visited the grave. He sat on the grass and talked to the headstone like his father could hear him. "You were right, Dad," he said. "I was wasting it, but I'm not anymore. I'm living now. Really living. And I wish you were here to see it. But I think maybe you are." A breeze moved through the trees. And Daniel felt, for the first time in his life, at peace. So what's the lesson we learn here? Here's the truth. First, death is the greatest teacher of life. We spend so much time avoiding the thought of death that we forget it. What gives life meaning. Every moment is precious because there are a limited number of them. Don't wait for tragedy to remind you of that. Second, later is a lie we tell ourselves. There is no perfect time to start living. There's only now. The trip you want to take. The person you want to call. The dream you want to chase. Do it now, because later might never come. Third, success without presence is just an expensive way to miss your life. You can have all the money, all the status, all the achievements in the world. But if you're not present for the moments that matter, you have nothing. And finally, the people you love won't remember how hard you worked. They'll remember if you were there. Your kids won't remember the size of your house. They'll remember if you showed up to their games. Your partner won't remember your job title. They'll remember the nights you talked until midnight. That's what stays. If you're watching this and realizing you've been existing instead of living, it's not too late. Daniel was 42 when he woke up. Maybe you're 25, maybe you're 60. It doesn't matter. The time to start living is right now, not tomorrow, not next year, Now I hope you found value in this story. If you did, please give this video a like, share it with your friends and loved ones who need to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. We will meet again.